Hello, my name is Gene Monterastelli, and I am the editor of TappingQA.com. And the video that you are about to watch is an interview that I did as part of the 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping was a free event, which was a fundraiser for the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network provides training and trauma relief tools to those in war-torn countries, as well as working with refugees all over the world. They've been able to help out over 200,000 people all over the world. After you watch this video, if you find this video something that was useful, the very easy way that you can say thank you to the guest for giving their time and sharing their expertise is to go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support and make a small contribution to support the Peaceful Heart Network. Again, that is 24hoursoftapping.com/support, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Next up, I have a conversation with Alex Ortner. Alex is the chief marketing officer and co-owner, along with his brother Nick and Jessica, of the Tapping Solution, a company with a mission of bringing EFT to the mainstream. He is also a producer of the Tapping World Summit online and has been attended by over 2.5 million people over the last 14 years. Alex is also the author of the children's book Gorilla Thump and Bear Hugs, a Tapping Solution children's story, and speaks to teachers and students on how to use tapping in the classroom to create balance, relieve stress, and get better results. Most recently, Alex has developed the Tapping Solution app, which in the raffle we're actually giving away 5 versions of, which features hundreds of tapping meditations that have been played millions of times and been downloaded in over 130 countries. This is a really super awesome conversation that I have with Alex on one of my favorite topics, how we can use tapping in a very practical way for productivity and taking more action. Here is my conversation, and we do a bunch of really awesome tapping with Alex Ortner. So one of the things that you and I have in common is thinking about and trying to be more productive and more focused, and like structuring days in a way that just make it easier for us to create the lives that we want. Because the easiest way to create the life that you want is to consistently take action in a direction that is useful. So one of the questions I've been asking lots of the guests over the course of the day is kind of origin story. How did you land in a spot that you found productivity and focus is something that you were interested in? Kind of like, what was your origin story for that piece of it? And then we can start talking about how we add tapping to all of that.
I love that. So, I mean, I feel like a superhero already just because apparently I have an origin story, which always feels good. I think I've always, from my background of growing up a soccer player and an athlete, I always really thrived on practice and consistency and training. I mean, I love training when it comes to exercise and running and all those kind of things. So that was always kind of built into me to work to consistently improve myself and my life. I think where it really started to be like, how do I really get focused is because of kids. You know, when you have 3 kids like I do, my kids are 9, 11, and 13 right now. There are so many darn interruptions that keep you from being able to be as productive and focused. I feel like when I started our tapping solution business years ago that I used to be able to work 50, 60 hours in a week when I wanted to. I just can't do that stuff anymore.
Right.
It is just not an option. And so it really is about how do I create consistency with my work to actually get more out of the hours that I work. And it's also just a matter of understanding that when you're trying to grow a business or improve in any area of life, it is, what is that next level of thinking that somebody above me understands that I don't, to be able to get more out of my time, to be able to you see with exercise so much, where I think exercise evolved over the years to go, how do you get, in great shape with 20 minutes of exercise a day, not 40, not 60, not an hour and a half. Right. And so with our modern crazy world, so much of it is about how do we get more efficient with our time so we can get more done. And that's really what drove me to just love productivity and focus, is just so I can get more done in less time and actually get to where I want to be just faster. Right. I think that's always what we want. How do we get there faster? How do we get there quicker? Right.
Great. So now that you kind of landed in the spot that was something that you were interested in, what now that you've been thinking about it a lot, and you and I have been tapping for years, what does that process now look like for you? Like, I want it, like someone raises their hand and said, yes, productivity and focus is something I would like more of.
Yeah.
What does that process kind of look like as a tapper, and how do we use that as a tool to make that easier?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think number one, it always starts with understanding just how the human brain works
Hmm.
and understanding that we have very old parts of our brain and we have newer parts of our brain.
Yeah.
And those old parts of our brain, that amygdala, and for those of you that are, into this type of stuff, have heard it a million times. If you listen to me at all, I say it all the time. Sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry I'm saying this again, but we have to understand how our
Right.
brains work,
Yeah.
right? And that's so much of what holds us back is our own internal fears, stresses are being triggered into a fight, flight, or freeze response state where we're not able to actually be our full selves.
Hmm.
And I think so much of the goal with tapping with any personal growth is how can you get yourself to show up as yourself as consistently as possible, where you're not being held back by your stresses, your fears, your past, your traumas, all these types of things. And so I am constantly, saying start off with just calming the brain down.
Hmm.
Anytime I'm working to become more focused, it's what I start my day with every single day is I just tap to calm it down. I'm not tapping on going, let me work on my limiting beliefs or my fears or any of this kind of stuff. It's how can I calm down my brain so that I'm able to access that prefrontal cortex and actually be present as myself. That is always, always, always where I start any work when it comes to productivity and focus. It's just calming it down, just calming down the brain so we can get into a place where we access our best self. And we've all had the experience when we're tapping that we're so stuck in some type of thinking and we start tapping and all of a sudden, different ideas pop up. We see things differently. And that's literally just because we're accessing a different part of our brain and we're able to be our full selves in that moment.
And as you say that, for me, like my day starts every single day. I set a timer for 5 minutes and I just tap without words. Like
Yeah.
it's literally just that idea of calming down. And you're talking about how this information shows up. The way I like to think about that is oftentimes I think about like mist in the backyard, and you wake up in the morning and the backyard is misty. And as the sun comes up, the mist goes away. And all of a sudden there is a tree and there is a shed. And
Yeah.
oh, there's a red door in the shed. And all of a sudden you can see the rusty lock. And we're just like, it didn't magically appear as the sun was coming up, but we were just giving access to it. And so what
Correct.
it sounds like you're describing is we're
Yes.
taking all of the anxiety that we're starting at any point in our day, but at the beginning of the day particularly, that's rattling around in there that's making it difficult for us to have clarity. Just calming the system makes it so much easier for us to see what is true, which makes it easier for us to take action.
Yeah. And it's always been my personal belief that all of us have the ability and potential to do anything we could ever possibly imagine. And it is literally working to get out of our own way with our past stresses, traumas, all sorts of things like that, and to just calm it down so we can actually show up as our full selves consistently, be present in life, and to just access our full resources on a consistent basis.
And so what does, like I mentioned, I tap without words to start my day. What does it look like for you when you say you're actually tapping to calm yourself down at the beginning of the day or calming your brain down at the beginning of the day?
I think for starters, it starts off with just being present with what you're feeling and acknowledging what you're feeling. I think so many people don't stop to go. I mean, as you said, you like to just tap for 5 minutes. And there's a lot of times where I just go to tap in positive language, positivity. But what's important is to show up and go, well, what am I actually feeling right now? Right? Because again, this comes from me with kids, is that when I'm trying to get them on the bus in the morning for school and we're running around and all that kind of stuff and kids are yelling and then you got to stop and come into your day and become present again. And there's a lot of stress that comes with that. For any parents out there, that you don't get to just wake up and go, oh, I'm going to start my day off with meditation. I'm going to start my day off with this. You start off in a tornado and you have to work to make yourself present. And so that is what I do is just stop to go, what am I feeling? Tap on that, acknowledge that, and then go into some of the positive language that I want to go into. Sometimes I don't have anything negative. Sometimes I'm feeling great and I still spend a few minutes tapping in some positivity and some positive affirmations into what I want to bring into my day.
It reminds me of the great hypnotist Milton Erickson said, all transformation starts by stating what is.
Yeah.
And just starting like where I am in the day. And I think it's really easy for those of us who have access to tools and those of us in the transformational space, how it's really easy to get frustrated with ourselves when we're not in a perfect resource state.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, oh, I got to be great today, it's like, okay, this is where I am right now. And I love the fact that you talked about some days I am distressed at the beginning of the days and some days I'm not.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. The place I'm starting is great. This is what I feel like right now. And what's the next step? If I'm in a great space, awesome. I'm going to step into some affirmations I love and try and amplify those things. If I'm in distress, I'm going to try and get to the place where I'm out of stress. And so it's just like, what's the next step forward is what it sounds like you're saying in that.
Absolutely. And I think creating that process for yourself so that you have consistency in what you're doing every morning. I kind of joke sometimes just, to people, imagine for a second, you're on a plane and you're getting ready to take off and you see the pilot come running onto the plane, all stressed out, all overwhelmed, jumps into the cockpit, comes up on the loudspeaker and says like, okay, guys, sorry I'm late. Everything's fine. I'm just going to pull back and we're just going to go. On the plane, you'd be freaked out going, no. Take your time, do your checks, do what you got to do. Right. I think that's how most people start their day. They come in as that frantic pilot and go, well, we're just going to take off and go with it. As opposed to going, no, it doesn't matter how I showed up on this plane. Once I get on this plane, I got to sit down. I got to go through my checks. I got to make sure everything's going to work before I actually go and try to take off. And so what I always do is say, you need to, no matter what's going on in your life, you need to have a process that you start your day with where you stop, you become present, you do some tapping, and you move into a state where you are calm and clear to be able to go in the direction that you want.
And it's interesting you say that. I actually do that twice. I do that when I sit down after lunch as well, because I've planned my day and most days the morning doesn't go exactly as planned. Now, sometimes it goes super awesome and I get way more done than I thought and I have space. And some days I don't have internet access for 90 minutes and I'm way behind. And so I make sure every day I get up from the desk and I leave at lunch so that I have a proper break. Even if it's just standing at the sink shoveling a bowl of cereal in my mouth, at least I'm away from my desk for a few seconds. But when I come back and I sit down, I do exactly what you're saying, a pre-flight check, second time through. Just pretend it's a new day. How do I reset myself? Because by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, all that great work I did in the morning might have worn off. And it's great for me to have an opportunity to reground in that particular way.
Yeah. And I think that reset process matters not only for what we're feeling emotionally and where the stress is and how we're accessing our brain, but also in terms of what we're actually trying to get done. Because people don't struggle with a lack of information today. They struggle with a lack of focus. They struggle with being clear on what they actually want to accomplish and actually working in that direction, because we live in a distraction world where you're distracted with your cell phone, with social media, with all sorts of different things. And so that recalibration is about not only recalibrating our brain and how we're feeling, but also what we actually want to get done, so that when you have that lunch and you have the meal, it slows you down, something goes off, you go, okay, wait, what do I want to get done right now? What direction am I trying to move to? Let me bring my focus back to what I want to get done and move in that direction and go, okay, I'm going to leave the social media alone. I'm going to leave those text messages alone. I'm going to leave those emails alone and work to get the things done that I want to do. So it's because it's the focus, not the lack of information, that really holds people back from moving forward in the direction they want.
And I think one of the things that also dovetails into that is that, like, happiness is outcome divided by expectation. Like, it's not just like knowing what to do, but also like structuring our day in such a way that it feels like it's doable. Like if I told you last Wednesday I got 8 things done, was that a good day or was that a bad day? Well, if I wanted to get 6 things done, it was an awesome day. If I wanted to get 12 things done, it was a disappointing day. And so it's not just about like you're saying, it's not just bringing ourselves to attention, but it's about having a sense of, what do I want to accomplish? That clarity of, this is the direction I want to go. And like the reason why I reset myself after lunch is it's less about calming down. It's more about the clarity about what is a reasonable expectation for me this afternoon. Because if I lost 90 minutes in the morning, I am now 90 minutes behind in my day. And if I still expect to get the exact same amount of stuff done, now I'm frantic after lunch because I'm like, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And that clarity that you're talking about goes away because all of a sudden I'm split in all of these different directions. And so it sounds like it's multidimensional. It's resource state, How do I
Yeah.
show up? How do I get my brain calm? It's also clarity. What's the useful thing for me doing as I'm stepping into the
Yeah.
day?
And I also ask myself, in terms of the tasks that I want to accomplish, what would actually make me feel better at the end
Mm,
of the day when I were to look back at that? Because a lot of times that's not necessarily what people expect. They might go,
yeah.
well, this is the thing I'm supposed to do. This is the other thing I'm supposed to do. And so they get 5 things done and they go, you know what? The one thing I wanted to do was to write this article or record, whatever it might be.
Yep.
That's the thing that in the back of their brain they were stressing about, and that no matter how productive they were in the day, they're running the back of the head. Maybe it's a task that they kept putting off for a week or 2 weeks, or something they kept going, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not getting this done. Whatever it is, even if that wasn't necessarily the most efficient thing to do, it was what was causing you the most stress. And
Yeah.
so realizing when you order those things that we want to get done and how it will feel emotionally at the end of the day, to go, you know what, if I got these things done at the end of the day, I could look back on my day and feel proud of what I got done, as opposed to going and working all day long. And I'm sure you've had it happen before, where you work for 8 hours in a day, get so much done, but you just feel like you weren't
Yep.
productive. And then
Yep.
another day where you work 3 or 4 hours and you're like, oh my God, this was amazing, because you got things done that mattered to you emotionally and made you feel good at the end of the day, that you were proud of them. They felt like it was in the direction that you wanted. And so
Yeah.
having that clarity on those tasks is really important, not just for productivity, but for what's going to make you feel better at the end of the day.
And I'm guessing at some point along the way you read the Brian Tracy book Eat the Frog,
Yep.
or have heard that talked about. And
Yep.
and I think what you're talking about here is a little interesting twist on that particular idea. For those that haven't heard this before, and I don't know where it came from, but I was introduced by Brian Tracy. This idea was, if you eat a frog at the beginning of your day, you've done the worst thing possible and everything gets easier after that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a useful thing, but what you're saying here is a little different than that, where it's like, at the end of the day, what's the thing that's going to make me feel best that I did it? And sometimes it's getting this gross thing out of my life so I never have to think
Right.
about it again. I
Yep.
filed my taxes. It's no longer hanging over my head. That is great.
Yep.
But it's not just about how do I be productive so I get the gross things out of the way.
Yeah.
It's how do I do the things that give me life, that give me energy, that actually move me towards my goal in a way that might not feel like the most important thing, but internally, boy, is it a really important thing. And I hadn't thought about framing it in that particular way. And I really like that question a lot. That I know Monday morning when I sit down, I will be adding that to my little morning routine. It's like, great, what do I want to get done today to feel like it was a great day? Like, that's such a perfect question to start with.
Because I think, productivity and focus is not just about going, how do I become more successful, or whatever the case may be. It's about, how do I structure my life in a way where I create more happiness and joy
Yes.
and presence in my life. Right.
It,
So if
it,
you're just thinking about things from a productivity standpoint, you're not quite understanding, I think, the point of productivity and
yes.
focus. The point of productivity and focus is to move you more consistently into a direction where you feel and enjoy your life more.
Yes.
That is goal number one.
Yes, I'm so glad you're saying this. It's a tool that helps us to do. The goal is not to be productive. The goal is not to be efficient. Like I've a super systemized person in my business, and I'm always telling my clients, like, I don't have systems to make my business run perfectly. I have systems so that when things go wrong, I have resilience inside of that, so that I continue to have the business that I want, the business that I love. And I love the fact that you're fronting the idea is that focus and productivity is not the goal. It's a tool that helps us to create the capacity to create the goals that we want.
Yeah. And I think just in general, I know that we structure, myself, my brother, my sister, we structure our business and our life in a way where we are enjoying things as much as possible. I know there's a lot of things that I could do in my business that would generate a lot more income, that create a lot more growth, but I don't want it if it's not going to be enjoyable, and I'm not going to enjoy the process, right? Team members is an example of that. We're very stringent on hiring people because we want people that are a cultural fit, that we literally want to hang out with and talk to every day. Because if not, what's the point? Just to create more growth so I can, generate an extra $1 million in sales in the business, or $10 million. That's not relevant. What is relevant is enjoying my day every single day, and also understanding that when I enjoy my day every single day, I'm more likely to actually move into a direction where I'm growing my business and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when we're in that state of joy, it's so much easier to access inspiration and insight and intuition and opportunities, because we're in a state that allows us to be there to access those particular things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So over the long term, it becomes this multiplying effect that becomes really, really useful as we're navigating that.
Yeah. And I think, again, just going back to that point, it's important to be clear on what the goal is of productivity and focus. It's to create happiness, presence, joy, the things that you want emotionally in your life, right? The goal is never to go, okay, I want to create $100 million business because that's going to create joy in my life. No, no, create joy now.
Right.
Always work on going, how can I create joy and fulfillment now, and have it be that I create joy and fulfillment today and tomorrow and the day after, and that everything I'm structuring or doing in my life is to consistently create joy and happiness in my life.
And it's interesting you bring in that financial component. There's been multiple studies, and I think in the United States the number kind of wavers. Based in each country, it's going to be different. But I think that your well-being and happiness is impacted by your financial status up to about $70,000.
Yeah.
Because up to $70,000, and if you have a family, it's going to be more than that. Like your material needs are taken care of. You're not in a place where you're super, super stressed and that sort of stuff. And then when you start adding on, that no longer becomes the place of joy. In the short term, as we're at the
Yeah.
lower end of the hierarchy of needs, absolutely it becomes
Yes.
something that is super, super, super valuable. More sales in my business means I'm not worried about paying rent, my lights being turned off, and sending my kids to school. That's great. But at a certain point, that objective becomes really, really different as we step inside.
Yeah,
of that.
which is where for me tapping is so brilliant and important, in that I think so often people stress about money and they're in a survival state even though they don't need to be, right?
Right.
For most people, especially in the US or just in the first world, survival is not, if you lost your job, if your business failed, all these things happen, you would most likely still have food, lodging, all the
Right.
things that are really about survival. And so when you can kind of tap and realize those things and just kind of remind yourself that everything's okay. If you fail, everything's okay. If you lose your job, everything's still okay. If your business struggles, everything's still okay. When you can allow those things to come into your body, into your energetic system, you can just be calmer and more present with what you do on a daily basis.
So after we spend some time, we make sure we're getting ourselves calm
Yeah.
and we're getting ourselves in that resource state. Then what's kind of the next logical step for someone who's trying to construct not just a morning routine, but a day that is useful, that is productive, that is focused?
I mean, I think part of it is choosing your focus,
Mm-hmm.
right? Choosing your focus and also choosing how you want to show up and choosing your identity on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
We will do everything possible to be in line with our identity every single day, no matter what we do. Every single day, right? The identity is the core of what's going to move us in one direction or another.
Yeah.
And so part of what I do with tapping on a daily basis, number one, is choosing my focus, right? So in that process, really bringing awareness. That's so much of what I like to do with tapping on a regular basis, is bringing awareness to things, bringing awareness to how I'm feeling, bringing awareness to what I'm choosing, bringing awareness to my distractions, as opposed to being run unconsciously, because it's our unconscious programming that is running us all the time. And so we have to consciously become aware of those things and choose new things on a daily basis. So in creating, tapping to calm it down, tapping to create that clarity of going, okay, well, so if I want to move in this direction, what are the 3 things I need to do? For me, I choose 3 things every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I get these 3 things done, will I feel fulfilled and move in the direction I want? And then once I am aware of those things, the things that I look at a little bit deeper are, what are the doubts that I have about myself? Right. So what are the ways that I'm limiting myself, that I think I'm not enough, that I think I'm not capable, whatever the case may be? And are there any ways where I'm feeling that if I do something that I'm going to be judged by others or rejected by others in some way?
Not coming to agreement on the way to go forward is inevitable. So if that's the case, great. Let me choose the thing that makes the most sense for me, because then at least I'm enjoying myself as I'm having people who think I'm making choices that aren't the most useful.
Yeah. But it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
It is, so much of it is, we want to consciously not care about what people think about us, or what we perceive. Most importantly, it's what we perceive they think about us. Because how often do we actually get to know what somebody thinks about us? It's like 0.0001% of the time we ever actually know what somebody thinks about us.
Yeah.
But we spend all this time in our head thinking about what they think about us, and worrying about it, and worrying about, are they going to think I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, whatever the case may be. And when we can tap to just release those fears of what other people think, or those fears of rejection, what other people think about us, and just going, I'm going to do what I want to do because it brings me joy. And also understanding that when I do the things that bring me joy and not worrying about what other people think about me, I'm most likely going to be creating more joy for other people at the same time. Right.
And as you say that way, the way I like to do that is I think I like to think in like 3 concentric circles. Like the first circle is my immediate family, my loved ones, the people I spend the most time with.
Yeah.
The second circle is people I spend a lot of time with, my clients, my friends. And the third circle is the barista at the coffee shop or whatever it is. And I imagine myself taking the action. And then I imagine the first circle seeing me do that thing. And I see what comes up as a way of unpacking this thing.
Yeah.
Because you're exactly right. There's a difference between me consciously buy into that and which is that tribal thing, because like and that's not hyperbole, like that's what really happened. And so there's this part of us that doesn't want that rejection. And so having to do something where we're getting a chance to emotionally engage the subconscious mind to be able to see where the part of us that is afraid is there, that's going to be the key to tap into it. Because I can consciously say, yes, it doesn't matter that my family doesn't believe in me.
Yeah.
But if my emotional self doesn't buy that, it doesn't matter how intellectually I understand that.
Yeah. And I like what you're talking there, but with the circles, because I think it's different for different people. So, and I can think about this with my own life. I mean, I work with my brother and sister, right? So we've got family dynamics in the work we do. And as you know, for a very long time, I was behind the scenes in what we did. I ran our marketing and operations for the first, I don't know, was 12 plus years or so before I was like, I really want to come out and talk about tapping and share what I'm doing. And I just love doing this stuff. Probably, I feel like I'm more passionate about this kind of stuff right now than my brother or sister are. Right. But so there's that initial circle dynamics. And some people struggle with going, I'm worried about what my brother is going to say, or my sister or my parents or my cousin or whatever it might be. Some people might struggle with the next circle just outside them going, it's my friends or my colleagues or things like that. Some people go to that next circle of going, I'm worried about what people are going to say online. If I put myself out there, people are going to judge me online and they're going to reject me, all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's different levels of it. I know for me, when it comes to, I think I care more about the inner circle. It's more about my family or colleagues. And I care less than most about how people judge online. I always say, if you're going to write a book, you could write an amazing book and it's on Amazon. You get 4.9 stars out of 5. You're still going to have a bunch of 1-star reviews of people disliking you that you've got to be willing to deal with and read and see that rejection. And so that stuff doesn't bother me. It's the closer knit stuff for me. So I think part of it is knowing or having that awareness of for yourself and going through that process you just talked about to go, okay, is it that first circle? Is it that second circle? Is it that third circle? Is it all of them? Which one do I have to work on and tap on to release, to create that freedom for myself to go, no, I'm going to choose to be myself regardless of what that circle says. For me, that was part of it to go, you know what? I didn't know what my brother or sister would say about, like, is it okay to have a third Ortner out there talking about tapping? I mean, there's enough of them out there, right? And my wife now, is out there more so. And it's like, the world is probably like, why are there so many Ortners out there doing this tapping thing? But I had to go, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do no matter what. It does not matter what my first circle or second circle or third circle says. I'm going to do the things that I'm passionate about and move myself in that direction.
And it's interesting you say that. I was just kind of replaying it through my head and my tapping journey. I originally found my way to tapping for social anxiety stuff in personal settings. And so for me, professionally, all 3 circles have always been clear. Personally, it was that second circle. Like the third circle, the general public was fine. The people closest to me was fine. It was the looser ties for me, which are the places where it's like, well, do they really know me? And what are they thinking about me?
Yeah.
And that was the thing that was showing up and impacting my life. And it's not like, when we present that, it's not like you go through them in order, but depending on the context, it might be 1, 2, 3 in some combination, and recognizing the place that fits in. And just, it's important to find that place, because then we know the place that we're going to lean in and want to start doing the work to create the transformation.
Yeah. And that can shift over time. I mean, for me, the third circle, for whatever reason, it never bothered me. I know it does for Nick, it does for Jess more, never did for me. The first circle with family is something I had to work on a lot. Now I don't worry about that. I feel like our family structure is so supportive and strong that we all support each other no matter what we do. The second circle is probably the area where I had to work on the most recently in terms
Yeah.
of, and then I joined this private mastermind group with all these, people who had sold businesses for $1 billion, and, Brendan Burchard and Jay Shetty and Lewis Howes, all these huge big names. And so it created a level of anxiety in there of being like, am I enough? How am I being seen? All that kind of
Right.
stuff. And I struggled with it for a good year and a half of being a part of that group. And then finally had to, as I continued to feel that in my nervous system, to go, I've got to tap, I've got to release this. I've got to let go of caring about what this particular group of people is thinking about me. And I did the work, I did the tapping, and I could care less now.
And
All I care about is what I want to do and how I'm helping people with my work.
And what you're saying there, like, and we can map it in business growth and like who we go around professionally, but I think it shows up in all areas of our life, is that, when we do the internal work that we love doing, it creates more capacity and space in our life. And so we step into a new place.
Yeah.
And when we step into a new place, it's a new place.
Yeah.
And so everything, even though it might look familiar, everything looks different. It looks different when I'm in a room of people who are successful at this level than if I'm with people successful at this level, where I'm really, really comfortable at this level. At the next level, oh my gosh, it becomes scary. I'm to the point now where there have been multiple times in my life where I've presented and spoke in front of more than 25,000 people.
Yeah.
And there was a time in my life where standing up in front of the classroom was a petrifying thing for me.
Right.
And so what happens is it's like, oh, great, I'm great in front of 30 people, but now 100 people are scary. Yeah. It's the same thing. I'm speaking. I might even be giving the exact same presentation, but because it's this new level of something. And so as we get this sense of feeling comfortable so that we can have the clarity to take action, the context we're doing that in is important. And I say that just to like normalize the experience of going, I was so confident in my relationship a year ago and I'm not now, or so confident in my business 2.5 years ago and I'm not now. It's not that you are failing, but you have evolved the context that you're in, and the way that we show up clear and comfortable inside of our own skin is different because the context has changed, even if it looks very, very similar.
Yeah. And I think that's the journey of personal growth, right? I think anybody listening to this is going, I'm here because I want to bring more awareness to where my challenges are. And I want to use tapping. I mean, this is what we love about it. You can have all this awareness, but it's the tapping that allows you to then release it and process these things through your nervous system so you can grow faster and release things faster and become more present and not care about what those people say. And again, we're talking here about those outside judgments, but there's also all the inside judgments, which is for some people, again, some people it's the outside judgment, sometimes it's the inside judgments, but it's bringing awareness to all those different areas of going, well, how am I doubting myself? How do I worry about myself? How do I feel like I'm not enough? How do I feel like I'm not lovable? How do I think I'm not smart enough? All those different ways where we can judge ourselves and where we need a tool like tapping to be able to release those things on. And again, it's creating consistency. It's being present, not sticking your head in the sand and saying, I'm here, this isn't necessarily easy, but I'm going to do the work. I'm going to tap, and I'm going to move myself into a positive direction of what I want. Something I'm really passionate about, I want to point out here, is with tapping is to not just go and have that mindset of, oh, if I just fix this, if I just tap on this, then I'll be okay. Then I'll be enough. Then I'll be able to release this stuff. Because one of the things, I've said this for years, with you have the law of attraction world where they're just like, I'm only going to think positively. I can't acknowledge the negative. I'm just going to be positive. I think it'll be okay. Sometimes in the tapping world, people can get caught up in, I just got to find the next thing to fix and the next thing to fix and the next thing to fix. Yeah. And I think really what you need to do is to be able to create a balance of that, to go, you know what, when I'm feeling something that I feel like is really pulling on me, I'm going to stop. I'm going to acknowledge, I'm going to tap on it. Then I'm going to bring my attention back to the positive. I'm going to make sure that when I tap, I'm also going to choose positive, forward-moving things for myself, not just go, I just want to focus on the negative and release it. Just focus on the negative and release it. Really got to continue more often than not to move into the positive with our tapping.
And I think this is when you and I first got a chance to work together, I think this is the place where I really felt a kinship with you, is I've always described myself as a practicalist. Like, it's not like I'm not a person that loves the personal peace procedure, because it doesn't matter what the traumas are in my past. And like you, it's just like saying a bunch of positive affirmations and not enough. It's like, what do I need to take care of today so I can just take one more step forward to take action? And sometimes I just need to show up and take the action. And sometimes I have to do a huge amount of internal work to do that thing, but it gives us this ability to look through the lens. And like a really simple way that I do that is like, at the beginning of my day, I look at my to-do list, And then I just imagine myself doing every single action, and I just pay attention. Is there an emotional resistance to one of those actions?
Yeah.
And if there is, then I just tap on that thing. And so it
Yeah.
doesn't, I'm not like what happened to me when I was 6. Now,
Yeah.
if I'm tapping on this thing and all of a sudden an initial sensitizing event shows up, awesome. I have the tool set to go after that thing. But for me, it's about what can I do today to move closer to my goal?
Yeah.
And how do I feel as I think about taking that action? And if I need to do some more work on that internally, then I'm more likely to do it. And sometimes I might only reduce the fear by 60%, but that's enough for me to take the action and move forward. That starts to create the momentum. And I prove to myself, okay, I can do this and I didn't die. And so maybe tomorrow when it's on my to-do list, it's not as scary, or it is just as scary, but all I need to do is just do enough tapping to do the thing. It doesn't matter if it goes away forever. Like my job isn't to clear all the crap. My job is to get the crap out of the way today, to take action today.
So take action. So one of the things that I talk about that it came up once when I was doing a live actually with Brendan Burchard, was a thing called an action gauge, where a lot of times people think like, if you think about tapping 0 to 10 scale. So if you had a piece of paper, 0 to 10 scale on one side might be the fear of something, 0 to 10 scale on the other side is that action gauge. That's how, at what level of fear you're willing to take action, right? And so if you're looking at a particular event or something what you want to do, let's say you gave the example of speaking on stage and you go, you know what, that's a level 8 for me of fear because I've never done this. It's 5,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever the case may be. Now, some people might go, you know what, I'm okay with discomfort, right? So I'll do it at a level 8, even though the fear is a level 8. Now, for a lot of people, you need to move that fear down to a 6 because their threshold is a 6. But all that matters is getting it to where your action level is higher than your fear level. It's not, as you said, on a daily basis, it's not about clearing it all. It's clearing things to a level where you are willing to take action and move your life forward.
And it's something that's contextual, like as a silly example of craving. Like as we sit here right now, on the other side of this wall is a little bitty plastic container of dark chocolate peanut butter cups from Trader Joe's, which is my favorite thing in the entire world. And as I say that, my mouth starts to salivate and the craving is at about an 8. It doesn't matter because I'm not going to leave this amazing conversation to do that. When we go on break here in a few minutes and I'm out there and I don't want to clear the thing out, being at a craving of an 8 is not going to lead me to good eating choices in the context of my kitchen versus the context of my office doing an interview. And so recognizing the fact, where do I need to be able to do the thing that is useful right now? And I think that's a really liberating thing in giving ourselves permission to know that I don't have to like get rid of it all in order to be successful. I don't have to find every initial sensitizing event, clear every single trauma. I just need to be able to take action right now. And I want to do enough to be able to do that thing.
Yes. And I will say, and I think this is really important because I'm not sure how much time we have left, is that a really big part of moving forward with productivity and focus is not just going to be all the things you do to drive yourself forward. It's going to be what are the things you do to get past the setbacks and the failures, right? Because it's just like, and again, I think the easiest example of this is exercise or trying to lose weight, and that, anybody can exercise once. How do you create that consistency? But how do you make it happen that when you do 4 days in a row and then all of a sudden you miss 3 days, how do you get back into doing it again? Right. How do you create that consistency without going, I'm a failure, I'm enough, look, I did it again, another time where I failed? It's how do you use the tapping to go, yeah, I failed, release it, let it go. So the quicker that you can get past those setbacks and those failures, the quicker you'll get yourself back into the direction that you want. And I think that is a really key difference between those that are successful and able to push themselves forward in the direction that they want, whether it's with business, health, whatever it might be, is their ability to get back on track after they have failed. And it's not, I think sometimes people have a perception of like, oh, those people are just, they're so focused all the time and they're just so energized and they just do it all right all the time. No, I can tell you, I've been around people who are billionaires and been like, no, they just know that after their failures, they acknowledge them, they let them go, and they move back into the direction that they want without sitting there for a day, a week, a month, beating themselves up about not being enough and not moving in the direction they want.
And it's, as you say that, I think, so I spent my 20s as a professional juggler, and like,
as most of us have.
Absolutely. Of course. That's all the path that all of us transformational people are on.
Typical path. Yes.
Typical path to transformation. But the thing that you do as a juggler is like, you live in failure.
Yeah.
Like you are constantly battling gravity and your own physiology. The guy I perform with at one point could juggle 5 clubs. And it took 45 minutes of practice every single day for 9 months just to get 5 clubs in the air. Not even like doing fancy tricks with it, just getting them up in the air. And it's really interesting. Like, the other thing I think about is online dating in New York City. Like in 9 years, the number of things that haven't gone as planned. And in the beginning, it's the scariest thing ever. It's like, okay, that is the thing that it was. And we move on. Where when we give ourselves the opportunity to recognize the times that we have failed and then figure out, okay, what did I do to get over that thing, to teach ourselves, like, it's not the end of the world. It is something that didn't work out today. What do I do again? That sense of resilience in the face of that is useful. Yeah. And again, that's why tapping is super, super awesome, is when it goes wrong, it's just like giving ourselves permission to, in that perspective that you're talking about, just live in the crap. This sucks because I'm disappointed because blah, 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 blah. And we slowly come up the emotional scale that then gives us the opportunity to go, okay, how do I refocus today? How do I restart today? And again, to go back to what I said at the beginning, that's the reason why I have pre-flight check after lunch, is it's exactly that. I'm just resetting. Morning is done. Great. What do I do with the last 4 hours that I have in my day as we step into it?
And I think, and I want to make this really important distinction, is a lot of times what's most important is not figuring out how, what do I tap on, all that kind of stuff. It's setting yourself up to be able to tap consistently, right? Mm-hmm. You said you've got a process that you do after lunch where you sit down and you become aware and you do that tapping. So I think a part of the personal growth is just to go, how do I set myself up for success? How do I go, okay, every morning I start like this. Every day after lunch, I do this. Every evening when I've got to let go of my day and actually sleep, because sleep is obviously a big challenge for so many people. How do I get myself to let go of my day, let go of my failures, let go of my brain running all over and over again? How do I set myself up for success in those different times so that I don't have to worry about tapping? It just becomes a natural part of my daily process.
And as you say that, so this is how complicated my system is. It's a little checkbox where I put a little X in each number that I go through. On page 2, I write down what did I tap on today. On page 3, if there are any insights, I write them down. It takes 5 minutes. I create it in Excel. And so like when you say create a system, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It can literally be, I just gave myself a gold star today because I learned at the beginning of the pandemic to do self-care. I needed to treat myself like a 6-year-old. And I literally created a chore chart for all of the self-care things I did every single day. Call mom, eat an apple, call dad, stretch, but just made it that simple. Like like when you say create a system, it doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to have intention to it. So it's easy for you to execute.
Yeah. And I'll say, I don't know if I have this, but you can see them right here. It's like, I created my tapping solution planner for one simple goal for me. Like I wanted it for me. I wanted to have a pretty thing that I could look at every single day that was printed out. And it's not cheap to just create one for yourself. At first, I created them and I would go print them out as staples and I get them binded and I do that. And I was like, well, if I'm doing this for me, I might as well do it for somebody else as well. But the number one goal of that's not like some big money maker for me, the planner. It is because I wanted it. I wanted it for me to create that consistency on a daily basis. It was my system that I created and that I tried to share with other people. And so, as you said, with your own process, and I tell people all the time, sometimes people worry about like, if they have my plan or another plan or whatever it be, am I doing it right? Oh, I'm not doing all that. Who cares? Do it your way. Do the parts of it that you want, but set yourself up for success on it.
The best organizational tool is the one you actually use.
Right.
Find I one time was working with a client and I recommended a planner for, and she came back to me and she goes, it's just not pretty enough for me. I'm like, awesome. Like that is, if you need something that is beautiful for you to be organized, and that's what you need to look at the beginning of the day, great. Let's find you something that is beautiful because that's more important than you doing it my way. What is the thing that you need to execute it?
And I think literally the only way that anybody will ever find a planner that they love 100% is if they make it on their own. Because whatever planner you use, realize that you're going to have aspects of it that you don't like. So change it, scribble that part out, create your own thing, whatever you do that you like. Don't feel like nobody has it so figured out. I don't pretend like my planner is like, oh, well, if you do this, this is the solution. No, this is what works for me. So whatever you decide to do, even if you grab an empty journal with just white pages, create a system for you that gets you to create consistency.
My planner is just an empty book. It's just little dots on there. And I have something I do every single week to create it that I found works for me. And that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Alex, I really, really appreciate one, your time, but two, your enthusiasm for this particular thing. It's one of those places that you and I are truly kindred spirits being excited about this stuff. And it's always a joy to have a conversation with someone who loves it as much as I do.
I love it. And as I said, sometimes people think productivity and focus is just about success, business. I'm like, no, for me, it's about how do I get myself to consistently do the things that I want to do in my life. That's with my relationship, with my health, with my business, with my, all that stuff. It all for me goes into productivity and focus.
Awesome.
It's
Great.
life. Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Alex. I really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thanks, Gene. Appreciate it.